I'm here with Brendan, the former founder of Toybox that was Core.com and now the founder of Sunset. Brendan, how you doing today?
I'm good, man. How you doing?
Good. I know this is a complete off the cuff podcast, and I'm super excited to dive in. But for those that don't know you, do you want to give just a brief introduction of yourself?
Yeah, of course, of course. Well, I went through, Y Combinator back in 2018. Started my first company, which was Toybox. Ended up being like a very early user of Acquire.com. I think it was it was called like Acquisition. It was called something different then.
It was MicroAcquire. I remember when Toybox,
MicroAcquire.
and it was just me running the company when Toybox came in, and I remember helping you personally, and it's good, good to catch up 4 years later.
I know. I knew they would crush it because Andrew would email me so quickly. And I was like, what is this guy up to? And we did like a chat after, but it was an incredible experience. Like we posted on, MicroAcquire at the time. We got like so many inbound interest so fast. I think we sold in like maybe like 5 days. So anyways, did that, started another company kind of right after. Unfortunately, had to wind that one down, didn't sell that one. And yeah, went through, a very long, brutal process of, shutting a company down, with all the legal and accounting and the, massive headaches there. And so about a year ago, a bunch of my other friends, they were having companies starting to wind down and coming to me asking for advice. And that's kind of how this idea of Sunset came to be, where we're the one-stop shop for dissolutions. We help tech companies wind down, do legal accounting, and all the operational aspects involved.
I like that because, startups have a high failure rate. They say 90%. I would argue it's even higher than that, and then most founders don't know what to do when they have to go and shut down their company, sometimes to their detriment when they're out of capital and they aren't able to shut down the company properly. Can you walk me through just exactly how Sunset works, how it makes the process easier, maybe the old way and then the new way with Sunset?
Of course, yeah. So the old way of shutting down your company, we've seen a bunch of different things, but at least the way I did it, first you're going to try and probably go find legal counsel, but like no one's going to want to work with you, especially if you don't have someone yet. Legal counsel hates doing dissolutions. It's like not super lucrative. Obviously, they can't build long-term relationships, and it's just like really awful grunt work. Then you're also going to need to find an accountant. If you don't already have an accountant, it'll probably be pretty hard to find one too. They also hate doing dissolutions because no one likes dealing with this stuff. But yeah, there's just a lot of steps involved. I won't kind of bore everyone and go through everything, but you have to figure out what to do with your IP. You have to figure out what to do with any other non-cash assets to liquidate. If you have certain debt obligations or creditors, you have to deal with those. You have to sign all these different consent, board and stockholder and liquidation manager agreements to kick things off. You have to build out a waterfall if you're redistributing any capital, potentially do safe cancellations or no cancellations in there. You have to cancel all your subscription. I can go on forever, but like there's massive amounts of steps and a lot of like small gotchas. And so like when I went through my dissolution, I thought I did everything. It took me like 9 months. And then I forgot about like workers' comp in New York. And a year later, I had like a $2,000 bill that I had to pay out of pocket. So it's just like a pretty awful thing to go through. And so, sorry, what we do is we just handle all of that. We've done like dozens and dozens of dissolutions of tech companies, and we do all the legal work, all the accounting work. And again, all that kind of operational, like how do you communicate with customers and investors and all that other stuff. So that's really what we do.
Nice. I think it's such a needed service, and I know it's not probably a product that most startup founders want to use, but if it gets you to a point where you can get on your feet faster and take another swing at the ball, if you will, and get back onto another startup, I think it's fantastic. My next question is, we were talking about this before we started recording, and we facilitate a lot of asset purchase agreements. So when that happens, the buyer will purchase the assets and then they leave behind a entity. How could Sunset potentially help people that business is going great? They sell the assets to a buyer, but they're still left with this entity behind. How could Sunset potentially help in those scenarios too?
Yeah, it's a really good question. A lot of our customers, actually, in a very similar position as this. So it's post asset purchase sale. And, when you sell your company, you might think you're done and you're like, great, we sold it, we're good to go. But yeah, unfortunately, that, like I mentioned, that's really like one aspect of dissolving an entity. It's a rather small aspect. There's all those other steps involved. And so, yeah, we work with a ton of startups where you'll sell your assets, come to us, and again, we'll kind of take care of everything else involved with that wind down process post asset purchase sale. And yeah, sorry, just going way back to your point, like you're saying about moving on with founders, about like 65% of the companies we work with, the founders have already started something new or are planning on starting something new. So we think it's great for the ecosystem to like get people onto what's next and get investors onto what's next versus, dealing with this for months at a time.
Nice. Yeah, we see that a lot with acquisitions too, is when people go to sell their businesses, they already have another business that they're working on, and then that's usually a top reason for selling a business. So if someone sells a business on acquire.com, it's an asset sale. The buyer buys all the assets. It goes over to Sunset. Can you walk through just maybe the differences between like a full dissolution of everything? Because it's kind of like an empty entity at that point, if you will. Is there any sort of difference between post acquisition, post asset acquisition compared to just a complete company wind down?
Yeah. So, you're still, like I mentioned, even post asset purchase sale, you're going to still have the majority of the steps. The one nice thing is that, IP can be pretty tricky in a wind down. So, getting into the nitty gritty a little bit. So if you've raised capital, let's say, you have to distribute all the assets pro rata. And so let's talk about a code base. If you've got a code base, you haven't sold it yet, it's like, okay, well, what does that mean? How do you distribute code pro rata to like 12 different investors? So the really nice thing about dissolving an entity post asset purchase sale is you've kind of covered your bases on the IP front. So, there's been a fair market value, there's been a proper sale, and now you can do the rest of the steps without having to worry about that. When you don't go through that, obviously, then we have to help you figure out what to do with your IP, whether it be auction it, open source it, if there's self-assignment involved, things along those lines.
Gotcha. So in terms of if users of acquire.com, wanted to use your service, what are some of the best use cases? I know we've kind of covered them, but just to kind of double down on maybe like the top 2 or 3, what would they be?
Yeah, I mean, to use your service, definitely. If you sell your assets, but you have again this like entity that is still around, we can just help take care of that, so you can kind of move on to what's next, start that next company, get that next job, do whatever you need to do, and don't need to worry about this. Because again, even if you raise money and you sell your assets, you need to figure out how to redistribute this capital. What's the waterfall and kind of liquidation preference stack that I need to be dealing with? And again, all the foreign qualified states, all your state and federal tax returns. I mean, the list is endless of things that you'll need to kind of be saddled with. And we can just kind of help take all that burden off of you, and you can again like do what you do best, which is like create new startups and sell them and not have to deal with like 50 government agencies you need to call, basically.
Nice. I love it. Well, if people want to learn more about Sunset pricing and all that fun stuff and how it works, where can they go?
Yeah, they can just go to sunsethq.co. That's our website right there. You can also email me, Brendan at sunsethq.co. Happy to set up a time to chat, learn more about the business. And yeah, we do, quick dissolutions, talking about timeline, pricing, all that good stuff.
Awesome. Well, Brendan, love what you're doing. Excited to, send some successful acquisitions over to you, and then potentially some, ones that just need to wind down and move on to something new. But love what you're doing, and I'm rooting for you, my friend.
Thanks so much, Andrew. Really appreciate it.
All right. Cheers.